me needing somebody outside of my family brought us closer together too. So I find myself.
Wait. You needing somebody outside?
Yeah.
Why? Explain that.
I was molested at 12 years old, and I was the middle child.
Welcome to the DSP podcast. This is a safe space for men to have vulnerable conversations about the fatherhood journey. Sometimes those conversations are heavy, sometimes they're light. Changes from guest to guest. I never know until we start the show. Start the show we shall. The elephant in the room says that we are in a different place. I am in Atlanta. I am here for an event to help me get better at podcasting of all things. And through that, I ran into this brother, Joevan Palmer. Welcome to the DSP podcast. How are you, my brother?
What's going on, brother? Appreciate you having me.
Man, everything is great. I'm having a good time. I'm excited to talk to you for a number of reasons that we'll get into. But I want to start with 315.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Did I get it right? 315,
wow.
The Q's?
Yes, sir. Q's Town.
The Q's, man, quick story. I used to spend summers in Syracuse.
Really?
Like from 6th grade to maybe 9th grade.
What year?
91 to like 94.
I was there.
91, 94. Yeah, my family lived in Camillus.
Yep. I lived in Camillus.
So we come up and like I remember going to the fair one year. It was a really cool area. And my cousin still lives there now. He's 37. And he's a man. He's out, trying to make a living and all that. And he was telling me, he's like, man, Syracuse is really like economically challenged. And I didn't know that. How would you characterize like the city of Syracuse, the feeling, the community? What was your experience?
So as a child, because I left Syracuse when I was 16 years old.
Okay.
The summer I turned 16, I left to go to North Carolina. But growing up as a child, I didn't really understand Syracuse. You're born and raised in a space, but it's just, I feel like my parents kind of protected me from a lot of the things that I see from the outside looking in now.
Yeah.
A lot of gang violence, a lot of dog-eat-dog stuff going on. Like I talked to a lot of friends who grew up with me in Syracuse, and they're like, man, it's a trap, man. Just like, you lucky you left. And I was like, I am fortunate that my parents made that move because I'm not 100% sure what I could have gotten myself into as I've gotten older. Because Syracuse is a rough place. It's like an extension of New York City. A lot of prisoners, people who were in prison in New York City, they get sent upstate. Like you ever hear like a lot of rappers say, I'm going upstate. That's what Syracuse is. Syracuse is upstate. So you have a lot of criminals in a sense. I hate to call them that. I don't even want to call them that, truth be told. A lot of people who've done crimes, you'll say.
For sure.
Who've gone upstate and they're kind of still living that same life. So that lifestyle that they carried is coming to Syracuse. So it's rough. It's a small town. Everyone probably knows everybody.
Yeah.
And if you live on the outskirts, it's a totally different place.
So were you in Syracuse, the city, or were you in the outskirts as well?
So my zip code was still Syracuse, but it was kind of like a little bit of an outskirt of Syracuse.
Okay.
Like there's like various parts of Syracuse that are kind of rough. Like, parts like Matson, there's a gang called Matson. Wow. So they named the gangs after street names.
Yeah.
So you got Midland, there's probably like a gang on Midland, something like that. So economically, it's changed since I've gone, since I left.
Yeah.
Where it's being gentrified now.
Wow.
Because Syracuse University is there, and where Syracuse University is, it leads into downtown Syracuse. Yeah. So they're pretty much expanding out and trying to buy up all the land, buy up all the old buildings. So it's spaces like I looked at when I grew up as a kid, like they bought that, and I'm trying to figure out why they're buying it, but it's making sense as to why they're buying it because they're pushing out a lot of African Americans out of the city, and pushing them out to the outskirts of maybe like the Valley, the place called the Valley where I grew up at. The Valley is like outskirts of Syracuse, that goes into like Nedrow where my grandparents live at. Gotcha. So Syracuse, it's a space I'm grateful for, but it's a space I would not go back to live.
I completely get that. That's how I feel about Hampton Roads. I'm from Hampton and Newport News, Virginia. I grew up in, and it's fond memories every time I go home. I like to get in and get out, but I just like it hurts me that my parents are still there. What was the move to North Carolina about?
My parents just wanted something different for us. They recognized that Syracuse was getting rough. My mom has always had wanted to move. She actually originally wanted to move to Atlanta.
Okay.
But my dad, he was like, that's too far from his mom, my grandmother. So they settled on Charlotte, North Carolina.
Gotcha.
And so the time in Charlotte, North Carolina, I was like, I hate it here. I want to go back home.
Wow.
I think because my parents, like I said, my parents sheltered us as kids from the time from a birth to, we became adults.
Sheltered you as kids. I think I was subject to that as well. Like my parents were very religious, right?
Yeah.
Religion drove every decision, every conversation to a point where I started to resent it, right?
Yeah.
And it was I couldn't wait to get out the house, right? What was your experience like when you when you not broke free? That's a terrible connotation. But like when you became a man and were able to make those decisions, what was it like for you to make that transition into adulthood?
I couldn't wait. I could not wait. My parents, so I was in North Carolina. My dad got a job in Atlanta. He had a job offer in Atlanta.
Okay.
That he said he couldn't resist. Most money he probably ever made in his life, he said. So they transitioned to Atlanta, and while they were transitioning to Atlanta, I was transitioning to college.
Gotcha.
So actually, I was already in college, matter of fact, and he had got the job offer. I would have started college in August. I think October he got a job offer.
Okay.
And they were like, are you coming to Atlanta with us? I was like, no, I'm staying here in North Carolina.
Yeah. What school you go to?
I started off at Lewisburg College, a small school outside of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
And then I transferred to Winston-Salem State in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Raleigh is 85, right? Raleigh is 15 off of 85 or 40 off of 85.
You asked the wrong person.
Oh man, I thought I knew it at one time. So what was your relationship like with your father? I don't want to breeze over that, but what was your relationship like with your dad?
It was cool. My dad has always been in the picture.
Okay.
He's always been very supportive of me, anything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
His motto was, if you're in a bubblegum chewing contest, I'm gonna show up.
Yeah.
But if I reflect back on it, I look at it now, like me and my dad, we just don't have the closest relationship like I would like us to have.
Yeah.
Like I would really love us to have a more tight-knit relationship.
Yeah.
And I believe there was some, I guess just going through childhood, you kind of reflect back on your childhood and as an adult, and you kind of if you take yourself out of your body to look at your life, you recognize some patterns and some things that kind of happen in between time that you're like, that didn't happen to me as a child. No, I didn't get that as a child. I didn't hear a lot of I loved you from my parents. I didn't get a lot of hugs and stuff like that. So it's kind of like our relationship is it's there, but at times I feel like it's non-existent.
How much do you know about the relationship your dad had with his father?
For the most part, it's never a conversation really sat down and had, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I know my grandfather, he worked a lot.
Yeah.
He worked 2 jobs. So I'm not 100% how much they saw each other because he was working a lot. I know he had a job in the daytime. He'll come home for maybe grab dinner, see everybody, and then he'll go to the second job.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about it, I really don't know. I really don't know what their relationship was. I just know that my dad was always in trouble with my grandfather. My grandfather was always, not beating him, but the whoopings and stuff like that because my
corrections.
Dad, the corrections.
Corrections.
So, it's just, that's a really good question. I actually would love to ask my dad.
Is your grandfather still alive?
Yeah, he's my last living grandparent.
Oh my God, man, please, if nothing else comes from this conversation, please, I'm always envious of people that had grandfathers.
Mm-hmm.
Like the story that I'm told is, I am just like my dad's dad. I never met him. He was gone long before my dad got, was with my mom or having kids or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom's dad literally went out for ice cream and never came back.
Wow.
So I have this dynamic of one that I embody, don't know. The other, the only conversation that I had with him was telling him that he wasn't my grandfather, then he passed. So what was having a grandfather? How did that impact? Did you spend a lot of time? Did you get any?
That's my best friend.
Let's talk about it.
That's my guy. Me and my grandfather, I think religion brought us both close together.
Okay.
And I also think that me needing somebody outside of my family brought us closer together too. So I find myself.
Wait. You needing somebody outside?
Yeah.
Why? Explain that.
I was molested at 12 years old, and I was the middle child. So it was like a combination of being molested and a combination of being the middle child. Like I feel like middle child syndrome really exists.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like I never really fit in with my family.
Yeah.
I had an older brother, an older sister who were like, my brother, we're about 3 years. There's about 3 year difference between us, and then my older sister, it's about a 5 or 6 year difference between she and I, and then my younger sister is like a 2 year difference between us. But my youngest sister, she was daddy's girl. My oldest brother, he was, mommy's boy.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of like stuck in the middle because I'm like, I don't really see myself as mommy's boy. I don't see myself as daddy's boy. And then my older sister, she comes from a different relationship from a prior relationship my dad that had before my mom.
Okay.
So she's, she has her mom, of course, and she's living with her mom. And it's like, I'm just kind of just stuck in the middle, being either picked on by my brother and sisters, being picked on at school, not fitting in at school.
Yeah.
Very few limited friends. So it's just, I needed an outlet, and my grandfather provided me that outlet that I needed. Like, I tell the story all the time. Like, Grandpa, you remember the time you bust my head open? Because he in Syracuse, like, we have wood burning fireplaces. My grandfather has one. So he was in the backyard, and he was just tossing wood, and I'm just walking back there to go with my grandfather just to hang out with him. I loved hanging out with him. Like, wherever he wanted, I wanted to be. And the piece of wood, he tossed a piece of wood and it bust me in the head. I got the scar to this day. And he feels so bad about it. But it's just, he was like my outlet, that he was my safe space. I would feel like, when I just needed some comfort and I just needed a good laugh, and to kind of just take me away from the pain, the memories that I've had from a molestation or just being picked at. Yeah. And he always provided a sense of comfort and like no judgment or anything.
So did the number one, I salute you for being as transparent and vulnerable, allowing us that information to peek into that part of your life. Mm-hmm. Did it happen within the family?
Yeah.
Have you recovered?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I fully recovered. I feel like no one truly fully recovers. It's an everlasting journey because it's just, when you go through such a traumatic event like that, you never forget. I can, if you ask me to, I won't describe it because it's too deep, it's too graphic. Sure. If you were to ask me what happened, how it happened, where it happened, what it felt like, what it smelled like, I can give you all of those details.
To this day.
But I'm better.
How did you get the courage to address it?
An ex-girlfriend gave me the courage to address it because I kept it in for years. Yeah. My parents would never understand why I was so angry all the time. My parents would never understand, why I shied away from men, why I was so quiet, why I was so to myself. Like, I was always to myself even as a child. But it got even, like, I started shying away even more after that happened. I just really didn't want to be around people. I wanted to be out of the house. I used to cry myself to sleep at night, asking God, why me? And my parents was like, you gotta stop doing, you gotta being like that. You gotta stop being like that. I'm like, y'all don't understand.
Were they aware of what happened?
Not at all. They weren't aware of what happened until I was 19 years old.
What was that conversation or conversations?
Yeah, it was really more so just a conversation, really. So my ex-girlfriend, she encouraged me to tell, I don't know how we even got on the subject of me even telling her. But it was over a Christmas break. She encouraged me to say, you need to tell your parents. You really need to tell them. And I was like, all right. She kind of gave me an ultimatum. Like, if you don't, like, I don't know what our relationship's going to look like. Like, oh, God. Wow. Yeah. And it's like, you young guy. You got, nice little college little situation going on. I don't know. So it encouraged me to tell them. So I sat down with them during Christmas break. And I was sitting on the couch with my mom. My dad was in the kitchen. And I was like, I got to tell y'all something. So-and-so did this to me while I was a child. It happened for about 2 years. This is the reason why, when y'all would tell me, stop being so angry or stop being this, that, and the third, this is why. Yeah. Why I was so angry towards that person, why I didn't care to be around that person. This is now the big explanation to you all's why, if you ever wondered why.
How did that play out in the not the immediate family and also the extended family dynamic. Because
Mm-hmm.
I imagine, was that person still alive and around at
Yeah,
this
they were.
time?
Yeah, still alive and around. But it never got out
Wow.
to my everyone else in the family because in a black neighborhood in our community, what stays in this house, what happens in the house stays in this house, and you're afraid to tell anybody because what comes behind that statement is a lot of like anger.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear coming out of that statement, like I'm putting fear into you, like like because the way it's said.
Yeah.
So the way it's said is like I can't tell nobody. So that's why I never told anybody for the 9 years.
So once you told your parents,
Mm-hmm.
though it didn't go further than the house, were they embarrassed, ashamed? Were they?
I really don't know how they felt. I just know that mom got like super quiet.
Wow.
And my dad was quiet, and there was just like a lot of silence for a little while. And then my dad, he took me upstairs to his bedroom and had a conversation with me. He's like, I get you now. My first tattoo was on my left hand. I hate the tattoo, but it's right here. No, that's the wrong one. Right here. Little crazy tattoo. It's all blurred out because I kept scratching it. I was young, 18. It says only God understands me. Because at that moment in my life, I felt like God was the only person that understood me as a person.
Did it go beyond the feeling of being misunderstood? Were you ever in a place where you felt like life wasn't worth living?
I wouldn't say I went that far. Okay. I've never been suicidal.
Yeah.
But I just always wished that I was in a different family. So you can kind of say that in the sense that they kind of like, I just wish like, I was born to this family or that family just to get out of the chaos or just to get out of, the feeling that I felt with everything that I went through. I was just like, if I can just be somewhere else, I'll be fine.
How old are you now?
34.
34. 15 years. Almost half of your life, well, it wasn't half your life, you carried it, but the first half of your life to this point largely was impacted by that time and that period.
Yeah.
And you had a conversation with your parents. I wanted to ask, was there like a transfer of responsibility in any sense? It doesn't. Your father understood you, so I guess that's somewhat progressive, right? To step in the right direction. What's your relationship like with your father now?
Right now it's not the best.
Okay.
Right. Because I'm thinking back on life. My parents had to come and recently move in with me, and that just took everything. Like I think for some odd reason, distance works better with me and my parents versus us being so close together. And I'm still trying to understand why. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the topics I'm having, conversations I'm having with my therapist.
Yeah.
As to, why does the relationship have to be distant for it to feel good to me?
So I'm glad you brought that point up. That's something else that I know about you. It's not a surprise that I'm going to put on for the audience that I don't know that you're a big therapy. What do they call it? You champion therapy.
For sure.
You're doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
How has it changed you thus far? And when did you start therapy?
I started therapy at the age of 29.
Okay.
So the way I fell into therapy, I didn't know what therapy was. Like, truth be told, I was interested in the human mind and how it works and why we act the way we do and think the way we think.
Yeah.
But I never knew like how to put a name on it. And no one in my family, I don't think I can recall anybody in my family ever talking about going to therapy.
Yeah.
And my the job I was working in a group home. And part of the job was to take the kids to therapy. Like my supervisor, gave me the job because I never had any experience in the field. I just got the job off of actually me wearing a suit.
Well, let's pull that thread for. Let's have a quick moment of levity. How did that happen?
So my dad was always big on dress to impress every job interview you go.
Yeah.
And it was for a local nonprofit. And then my supervisor at the time, he's a great guy. Shout out to Kenneth Burton. He was like, yo, you don't have any experience, but the way you showed up and presented yourself, you was the only person who came to interview in a whole suit and tie.
There's a lesson.
Yeah, so a suit and tie got me the job, and didn't know anything. But when we took the kids to therapy, and I'm sitting there listening on the conversations that they have with the therapist on how they can get to release all their frustration, everything that they're suppressing, I'm like, yo, that's dope. I was like, I got a lot of stuff I need to talk about. And I asked, I was like, yo, can I schedule a session? Like, I really want to talk to you. And she was like, sure, get on the calendar. And the first time ever, I spewed out everything.
Wow.
And it was like the best feeling ever. And at that moment, between working in the group home with teenage boys and teenage girls and back and forth with them through their therapy sessions, and then actually me have my own therapy sessions, which led me to become a mental health advocate and to actually want to go back to school to become an actual mental health therapist to help other men who've gone through similar situations like myself, or help anybody in general who's gone through a similar situation as similar as mine. And I urge everybody to go to therapy. Like, I don't care, like, if you feel like you got the best of the best life, because we're all either going through something, getting over something, or trying to get through something. Yeah. And I believe a therapist is the best person to help you navigate through that. Yeah. I don't take any shots at coaches, because coaches, they do a great job. I'm a coach myself. Right. But it's just, there's some things that coaches can't do. And there's some things that therapists can do. Yeah. That can kind of take you back, because a coach can't take you to your childhood and bring you back to your adulthood. There's no way possible for them to do that, because they don't have the right techniques. Yeah. If you start asking me therapeutic questions and I start crying and then you don't know what to do with me, now you just open a can of worms that I got to live with for the rest of my night if I have access to a therapist.
That is a really good point that shouldn't be taken lightly, right? So this is not therapy. I've said it on many other, and I don't think anybody, if you by some chance confuse it with therapy, I respect the craft. But we gotta be very responsible with the conversations that we have with people in the vein of trying to help them, when we don't know how to help them beyond that point that you were just talking about. How has it changed the way you see the world, the way you interact with trusting people, men specifically? How is that process playing out for you because of therapy?
It's helped me become more self-aware. It's helped me see people for who they are. It's helped me see through people, because we live in a broken society with a bunch of broken individuals. Like, we all, especially within the Black community, we all come from something that's been traumatic in our lives. Yeah. There's some, people who say, I've had some conversations with some people who are like, I ain't really got nothing going on, because I got a podcast myself and we tell traumatic stories on it. Yeah. And a few people say, man, I'd like to get on a podcast. I say, what's your story? Some people say, I don't really have one. But you have some people who really have some truths and some hurts and some pains and things that they've been through that, like I said, therapy helps. Yeah. I think I'm glad that therapy has become very popular in our community nowadays. Yeah. But I think we also need to take it a lot more serious, though.
Yeah, it's not age-old analogy, but analogy that we've definitely heard before is like, therapy doesn't mean that something is wrong in all cases, whether it's therapy as a single person, therapy for marriage, counseling. Like, you go to the gym to get to a better place, and once you get to a better place, you don't stop going to the gym to stay in that place. Some people stop going to the gym, but you don't stay in that place once you got there. How much of that parallels with your health journey? I'm not going to say weight loss, but how much of that mindset, was it intentional? Was it just happenstance that you're on this path in parallel, or what?
It's like a full circle moment where it's all just coming together. Therapy has taught me to love myself more. How to love myself, how to care for myself, how to protect my space and set boundaries. And sometimes I think I've had to set boundaries with myself and look at my negative patterns and my negative traits and stuff like that, and really analyze, okay, Joevan, like, how did you get to this, your heaviest? My heaviest was about 335 pounds. Wow. And right now I'm standing at, 289 right now today.
289. Yeah. 289. That man, I saw a post. It's not my words. But it was something to the effect of these is Hawaiian rolls. These is like my man getting after it, right? He's slimming down. You look like you look joyful.
I am.
And I'm not necessarily qualified to say that because of
you are.
like the time that I've known you, but I think I recognize.
Yeah.
I kind of dealing with me. I kind of see stuff in people too. What does joy feel like compared to life up until you made that pivot and started working on you?
So joy right now is just, I'm on this really dope journey where life is making sense. And
pause. You're 34?
Correct.
Salute to you.
Thank you.
It was 40 for me. Continue.
Yeah, it's just life is making sense. And I've been positioned to be in the right spaces at the right time. And I'm learning what taking advantage of your opportunities means now. And now that I'm learning to take advantage of it, and purpose is now in place, and I have a clear vision and clear sight of where I'm going.
Yeah.
That's what that joy looks like for me and what it feels like, because I'm connected with some of the right people. I'm sitting on your podcast today, sharing this story.
Hey, share some light. Throw some light on this.
Share this with a dope guy. And like, I love your podcast because it's like, you said, dear son, is like, these are conversations that Black men don't have with their fathers.
Unfortunately, and again, from the outside looking in, the dynamic is never what it seems to be, right? We had the cookie cutter family. Parents were church leaders, went to church school for a time, and we couldn't communicate. Me and my dad couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
So for all of that's worth, and I think there's great value in him displaying what it is to serve.
Right.
Serve God, serve your community, serve your church. I was missing some. Hey, here's why I feel like this about alcohol. Not because of what God said, but I had this experience with it.
Yeah.
We couldn't connect on that level, so I went to find the experience.
Right.
And I realized at this stage of life, I don't need the experience. I need the information from your experience. Like, I don't have to run into the same wall that you did just for us to have something in common. And I feel like that's something that we do. And as trite as it sounds in the Black community, we get so enthused about the negative things we have in common.
For sure.
And I'm very careful not to number one, undo that with my father. Like, so to get rid of the guilt that I had for creating the distance between us and the resentment I had for the direction that the way he managed his family, he had to manage his family, right? And he was learning on the fly too. So
for sure,
having children has brought that to my attention. And that's something that I don't want to carry that into the relationship with my son, where we have all of the space and opportunity to communicate and we just don't.
Right.
It's been like that for some time. What do you want to take these, what they call KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities that you're developing through going through counseling? You're back in school to become a counseling professional. What is the exact?
So it's a master's in social work, which licensed me to pretty much be like, it's like the actual best degree that you can have to be a therapist.
What do you, perfect world, resources available, what does success look like to you in terms of taking your pain, taking your education and your experience, taking your therapy, taking your degree and turning it into impact to the world? Because I don't want to box you into a community, but what does that look like for you? Have you thought through it that far?
Yeah, so success, when I would know, like, I would say I'm quite successful now. Like I've actually, I feel like I'm walking in success, but there's a few things on my bucket list that I must do to say, you know what, I've made it.
Gotcha.
Which is, one, build a house in Africa just to have. 2, have a place here in the States to have.
Yeah.
But the biggest one is I want to build a tiny home community for foster children.
So, tiny home community for foster children. The tiny home is throwing me. Why tiny? Is it just the footprint?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't want it to be it's like a space that you can just call your own. There's like a lot of kids in foster care who don't have a space that they can call their own, where they can just lay their heads at night and say, yo, this is mine. Yeah. I worked in foster care for so long, and I've worked in, the juvenile justice system as well. And there's kids, who just don't have a space of their own, and they just need an outlet to kind of maybe get away from their family and kind of like, have their life reinvented for them. Yeah. So I want to create this program. It's like a year-long program where they live in this community. They have all the resources they need, therapy, financial help, entrepreneurship help, whatever they need is going to be in this small community for them, away from the world. It's like their own world. They get it created to be, they'll name their house after them. They get to, do all types of work that they want to do, travel a little bit, and they see the world and just kind of give them something different from the environment they grew up in. Because I know environment is very important to, the cultivation of a child to a man, or a child to an adult, should I say.
Wow.
So
you have thought about it. You give it
you
give it some thought.
Yeah.
Joevan, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have a prior commitment, and I hope this is the first of many. And I think this is the perfect length and amount of information to digest, because I want people to understand you. I don't want it to breeze over. You only watch the first 15. I would like to have this conversation. I'd like to continue this conversation if you're open to it.
Oh, for sure. I'm actually planning on coming to Dallas again.
Yeah.
So I'll call you when I get to Dallas, man. My own god sister lives in Dallas, so I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, word is I'm building a network, but it's not about me. It's about me. How can the people find you to get more in tune to what you're doing and kind of keep you honest on this big dream that you had that you will accomplish? Because I'd like to be a part of it.
Oh, so for sure.
How can they reach out to you?
Thank you. So social media is my outlet, or email, but you can catch me on social media, Joevan J. Palmer. That's JoevanJPalmer. Instagram, Twitter, all that good jazz.
Good deal. All right. Well, this has been the latest installment of the Joevan Palmer Show on the DSP podcast. Guys, I got stuff on my website you can buy, you can support. There's buttons you can push to do a lot of things to help us out. If you feel so impressed, do that. But I don't want to keep you any longer. So we appreciate you guys. God bless you. Peace.
The Dear Son podcast is produced by D. John's Live Studios. All rights reserved. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time.